Well, we have everybody here, so let's go ahead and get started. Then we have the team and the institutional representatives. So let's move forward here. Thank you all for coming back, and appreciate especially the team joining us early. We're on item 14. Item 14 is a report of the accreditation team to the University of California, Berkeley. Consultant Jake Shuler will introduce this item. Joining him is team lead Dr. Edmundo Litton and institutional representatives Dr. Prudence Carter, Dean of the Graduate School of Education, and Dr. Lisa Sullivan, co-director of Berkeley Educators for Equity and Excellence. Does anyone need to recuse themselves? Seeing none, Mr. Shuler, will you please begin?
Yes, thank you. So good morning, committee members. The UC Berkeley site visit took place February 8 through 11, 2021, so not very long ago. It feels like we just sort of finished this visit. The visit was conducted entirely by video technology on Zoom. Despite that, we had a total of 550 interviews conducted with various stakeholders throughout the visit, and the visit proceeded in accordance with all normal accreditation protocols. The team at UC Berkeley was led by Dr. Lisa Sullivan, who is the co-director of the BE3 Teacher Education Program. Each of the program directors and coordinators were also involved in depth throughout the year and helped respond to many requests from the team throughout the year. They were a fantastic group to work with and were very thorough in their preparation. They also had a great website that was well organized and easy to navigate. Also joining by Zoom is our team lead, Dr. Edmundo Edward Litton. Edmundo was a joy to work with through this process and a fantastic leader. I'd also like to thank our site visit team for contributing their time and expertise to this visit. I will now stop here and turn it over to Edmundo, who will present the findings and the accreditation recommendation.
So good morning. I am pleased to share introductory remarks on behalf of the site visit team for the University of California, Berkeley. As Jake mentioned, like most site visits this year, this visit was conducted virtually. However, even if we were not physically on the campus, the team completed the site visit clearly, saw the commitment of the UC Berkeley faculty, staff, and students to promote social justice. The institution collaborates with various organizations, including neighboring school districts, to ensure that schools are moving closer to the goal of providing equitable education for all students. After examining all the evidence that was presented, the site team visit is making a unanimous recommendation of accreditation to the Committee on Accreditation. The recommendation is based on the following. The team determined that all program standards are fully met for a majority of the credentialed programs. One standard was met with concerns for the Career Technical Education Program, and a similar standard was also met with concern for the Adult Education Program. The team also determined that the University of California, Berkeley provided sufficient evidence for meeting the common standards. Thus, all common standards are considered met. The site visit team concluded that the University of California, Berkeley, when judged as a whole, meets or exceeds the Commission's adopted common standards and program standards. The University of California is judged to be effective in preparing educators and is demonstrating overall quality in its programs and general operations. Thus, the unanimous recommendation of the site visit team is accreditation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Litton. Appreciate that. This is now an opportunity for the institutional representatives to briefly comment about the visit. We remind you it's not a time to dispute the team report, but rather provide any thoughts that you had about the visit itself.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone. I'm Prudence Carter, the Dean of the Graduate School of Education. I want to thank wholeheartedly the site visit team, Jake Shuler, Dr. Litton, all the site members, and also in my incredible colleagues at the University of California, Berkeley. As the report will show, we're a complex arrangement in terms of the training of professional educators. And despite that, I'm very proud that the team was able to observe the extent to which we work very well across 5 decanal units and organizations in those 550 interviews. We try as hard as we can to maintain the highest quality programs. Here at the University of California, Berkeley, we take the feedback very carefully. We continuously improve. And one of the things under my administration that we've been most proud of, based on our feedback from our last review, was to think about how to even further deepen our connection to our local school districts and area partners and those whom we train. So this has been a really great process for us, even further deepening our connections with one another. And I'm very grateful to you for the work that you've put into this process to give us feedback. Elisa.
Yes, I'll just second Prudence's gratitude to the entire site team. I feel like Jake, Shuler, and I have worked together for more than a year in preparation, and he's really been just a joy to work with. This is the second full site review I've gone through, and yeah, it just was really Jake's professionalism, his communication has been wonderful, and then Dr. Litton and the whole team. I can speak for many of my colleagues who have expressed their gratitude to even having these conversations. You know, they can sometimes seem like a, you know, I don't want to say burden, but you know, it's high stakes, and but it was a great chance for us just to, you know, especially in times of pandemic when we don't necessarily have those, you know, times we pass each other in the hallway and talk, and just deepening those connections through the review process was incredibly valuable for us. And then finally, I'll just say that, you know, in terms of the areas that were met with some concerns for our CTC program, we were grateful to see, you know, our director of those programs came on just a year and a half ago, and he's been working very, very hard to address many of those areas that you all pointed out. So it's good for us in terms of the ongoing work and what still needs to happen. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Dr. Salsa, and thank you, Dr. Carter, as well. We now open the floor to committee members for any comments or questions. Member Taylor.
Congratulations on your report, and thank you for your work. There's dire need to diversify the teacher workforce in the state of California and have it better reflect the students in the classrooms of the state of California. Can you speak to your plans for the future to address that need?
Prudence, would you like me to lead this off?
Sure. Well, let me just give a top level. Thank you, Member Taylor. We certainly appreciate that question. And for those of you who know me or know what I stand for, this is a really critical area of engagement for us. You know, we've had a challenge, and we've also we're stepping up to the challenge, and that is about funding and competing with our local competitors. But I will say, in the 5 years since I've been here, that we've already seen significant growth in diversification, and that is certainly at the forefront of our attention to be proactive. And Elisa can talk about more concrete steps that we're taking, but that is one of our fundamental goals, is to keep on. Now, one of the things that I want to draw your attention to is that we can have the applicant pool, and the yield may not necessarily reflect the pool. And that is because of the market competition in some ways. But I definitely think that we have improved, and we're on the map. And with our tightening and strengthening our relationship with our local school districts, particularly through various pathways, potentially, and some future collaborations, we're going to be even more prepared to meet the diversification project in the state. Elisa.
Yeah, so I am just to speak to one concrete initiative we've developed a research practice partnership with Oakland Unified School District, and that is focused specifically around the recruitment and retention of teachers of color, specifically Black and Brown. That's the true partnership, targeted recruitment of urban educators. We've just finished in BE3 we are in the process of finishing our spring admissions and working very closely with OUSD to target folks who are either paraeducators or serving in some other capacity within the school district but need their credentials. So the OUSD end is working on identifying those folks, providing very robust support for them to pass the CSET exams, which is often one roadblock, and then providing support for them to come to BE3 and to complete the program and return to OUSD to teach. So we have, I forget off the top of my head, at least 3 or 4 folks from our incoming cohort, we hope, that are a direct result of that collaboration. And this is just really the first year of that collaboration, and we intend for it to continue and to deepen, to look for homegrown folks to bring in, help get their teaching credentials so that they can return to the communities where they were raised and teach.
It's a fabulous program. Thank you. Member Hillis and then Member Czajkowski.
Congratulations also on a very strong report. Just a question of curiosity. It was mentioned about this final paper that the students do to complete their master's degree. And I was just curious if you could just quickly explain what that is based on their year in the schools.
Sure. So our candidates complete a practitioner-based research project in their spring semester. We're working with them all right now. They've each developed or articulated an inquiry question and a cycle of data collection. And all of their inquiry questions are focused on some aspect of their practice, teaching, learning with the particular students within their student teaching context. So we have folks doing inquiry, across the whole range of issues that they're navigating and learning and practicing in the classroom. Some are very, kind of pedagogically focused. How do I deepen my questioning processes in, a secondary calculus classroom? Some are more social emotional based, some are more community based, but they're all centered around some aspect of teaching and learning within their contexts. We begin that process in the fall. All of our candidates do a practitioner-based research seminar in the fall where they work in teams, in their site teams, and actually articulate questions that will be of use to the site. And so that's the way they kind of are scaffolded into learning about, methods, data collection methods, learning about surveys, interviews, etc. So in the fall, they do a cycle investigating a question at their site. And then the spring, now they're moving into their individual projects, many of which grew out of the fall projects.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Member Czajkowski.
Yeah, go Bears. I'm a little biased. I have a freshman who's just entering that pipeline over there. But my question has to do with teacher residency, because as I'm listening to you, address questions about recruiting high value future teachers, I noticed, I read in your report about CalTeach, as a focus for math science, and clearly these are teachers that are in high demand, and teacher residency as supported by the CTC really encourages recruitment and support of diverse teacher candidates in exactly those fields, and then also in special education. So I just wonder if you have residency relationships with any of your I was going to say feeder LEAs, but partner LEAs, and if so, what you think about that, and if not, what your thoughts are about how residency might further advance your institutional goals.
Yeah, I can respond to that. So we do have our, particularly, this is separate from CalTeach. CalTeach, they're undergrads, so the residency issue is a little different because they're completing their their undergraduate degree. But in BE3, our secondary math science does have a residency agreement with OUSD. So a number of our folks work with both OUSD and the Trellis Foundation. That I know has been a very successful collaboration. I can't speak to it in as much depth as my secondary math science colleague would be able to if he were here, but I know that it is something that we are planning on continuing and deepening. We reorganized our teacher ed just 2-3 years ago into, we are multiple subject and single subject under the BE3 umbrella. And so, we've been in a process the past few years of really just tightening up our internal processes. And I think looking at deeper opportunities for residencies is one of the next steps that we have on our horizon, but we do already have some going with OUSD.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the committee members? All right, seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion? Member Czajkowski.
I move that we accept the recommendation for accreditation for UC Berkeley.
Thank you. And is there a second? Second by Member Martinez. The secretary, please call the roll call vote.
Jomaline Bolatayo.
Aye.
Kathy Gracia.
Aye.
Katrine Czajkowski.
Aye.
Bob Frelly.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Lynn Larson.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Anna Moore.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Carter. Thank you, Dr. Salas and Dr.
Having us.
And as always,
thank you,
thank you.
Dr. Litton, and thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks. We're at item 15. Erin, is there sufficient time to look at 15?
Yeah, I think we can probably get it started for sure.
Sounds good. Let's do that. Then we're in item 15. That's a discussion of draft revisions to the COA Procedures Manual. Administrator Erin Sullivan and Analyst Michelle Bernardo will introduce the item. Does anyone need to recuse himself? No, that'd be essential. Ms. Sullivan, will you please begin?
Sure, thank you. So at the January COA meeting, staff presented an item for discussion of the need to update the COA's Procedures Manual. The manual was last updated in August of 2010, so the revisions and modifications of the current accreditation system and the current operations of the COA since that time are not reflected in the manual. Some feedback was provided during that presentation in January, but the COA also took action to appoint a subcommittee of its members to review the manual and provide feedback. The revisions that are presented to you today represent that feedback. So the feedback that was provided by you during the meeting, the feedback and comments that were provided by your subcommittee, and also some thoughts and questions from staff in some places, as identified as for committee discussion. So staff is asking today that you review the proposed revisions, which are presented in track changes in the item, and provide any additional feedback or comments. And then staff will incorporate all the changes into the document and present it to you for adoption at a future meeting. As you consider possible revisions to the manual, remember that this is one of 3 manuals or handbooks that have been adopted by either the committee or the commission to describe and guide the work of the accreditation system. And each document serves a different purpose, but they do work together to provide overall guidance to all of the individuals involved in carrying out the accreditation of institutions and the programs they offer. If you will allow me to use my policy lens from the previous work at the commission, I kind of described this when I was talking about it with Cheryl and Michelle early on, as the 3 documents kind of interacting in the following way. So the accreditation framework, which is adopted by the commission, is like statute. It's the what, and it's kind of at the top of everything. it provides, I just said at the top, now I'm going to call it the foundation, but it provides the foundation and the guardrails within which the work has to be accomplished. And then the handbook, which is something that you all work on and approve, is like regulations. So it's the how that further defines and provides instruction for the activities and the personnel required to carry out the work of accreditation. So then we have the procedures manual, which is developed and adopted by the COA itself. And that provides specifically for the governance of the committee as a body. And it's a document that's provided to new members as part of the onboarding process. So it really describes the nuts and bolts of the committee's responsibilities and how those responsibilities will be carried out, what your meetings will look like, etc. Some sections of your manual reflect statute, and I think that's called out pretty specifically for you. So those sections that reflect statute cannot be modified, obviously, but other sections, as Michelle's going to kind of walk you through this a little bit, we are looking forward to getting additional feedback and also to your discussion in some of the specific areas where we would like some additional feedback specifically. So with that, we'll turn it over to Michelle.
Okay. So I think it's probably easiest if we just follow and go through the different chapters where we had some changes or comments, and then things that were we believe should be up for committee discussion. I do want to just thank the subcommittee, Cheryl, Lynn, and Mike for their comments and their input on reading through the lengthy procedures manual. But so for chapter 1, there wasn't, there was just a minor change for the removal of the language related to how the manual needs to be provided in a specific form to new members. I believe it says it was emailed to new members, electronic or hard copy. So the new language would allow it to be sent electronically or provided a hard copy. So not much change to that for chapter 1. Any comments or concerns about that before I move on? Nope. Okay. Chapter 2 is the organization of the committee. 201, procedures for the election of officers. The COA may wish to discuss whether it would like to change to hold elections of new officers. Currently, the COA scheduled for electing new co-chairs was to provide new members a voice in this process. Does the COA wish to make any changes to this timing? None are proposed in this version in this item. So currently, the current process is that the meeting, the second to the last meeting, you elect or propose new co-chairs, and then they vote, and then you would vote on it in the last meeting, which is the June meeting. So this just asks if that's something that you would like to change.
You know, Michelle, the only thing that comes to my mind is that there's really no official process for identifying potential co-chairs. So I don't know if there's a way to do that. If someone who's interested, maybe this doesn't even go, I don't know, could email the co-chairs and say, I'd like to be considered, or, you know, just there's no process right now to get from, you know, our body to being a co-chair. So I don't know, that might be kind of nice to have.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a handbook thing or not, but.
One way you could do that, I think, is that you'd keep the idea that the next to last meeting where proposals for the chairs are open, but then keep that window open for other proposals via email or something And so then when we come to vote at the last meeting, you have the proposals that were made at the previous meeting, but any other proposals that have come in, in the month or two in between, and then take the vote. Because some people, they might want to propose themselves. They might want to propose someone who they need to check with first or something like that. So if you have the window open rather than it just being on the spot at the actual meeting.
Okay.
Well, and I would just add that, wow, I look at what Bob and Anna do and I'm like, I'm not worthy, kind of like, it just seems like you're going from 0 to 60, like from us to like being in charge of everything and everything they're able to do. And I think it might be, I don't know if this is, again, handbook sort of thing, or manual kind of question, but I think it would be kind of interesting to have the opportunity for members of the committee to kind of shadow or kind of see what's under the hood, or to some way understand what goes into building expertise, like what they courageously use to lead us forward, right? I think that would be helpful to build capacity within the committee. I think that's the intent of the question.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
We're thrown behind the wheel and said, have fun. But I do understand what you're saying. I think, Erin, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Like you are not.
But I do think there might be even some kind of a sub-manual or something maybe within there that could be worked on as far as the guidelines for what chairs, what the roles are, what the expectations are, and so forth. We kind of learn as we go along and get some guidance from previous chairs and who, the staff, the PSD staff is wonderful, but maybe something concrete in writing, even that might be beneficial so people can actually see what would be involved.
Sure. And I'm not sure, I think Katrina alluded to this too, I'm not sure that it's a procedures manual thing. Right. There are some sections in the procedures manual that talks about what the chairs and co-chairs are responsible for. But some of sort of the soft skills that go into being the chair, maybe, that's a separate kind of a document. And perhaps Bob and Anna, we could work with you to get your thoughts on paper about what it is that you do, and just create, even a simple one-pager that could be provided to folks as they think about whether or not they want to put themselves out for this role in the future.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then also just, I can't resist making the comment as a historian kind of person. I would think from a CTC referent perspective, like being able to capture some of the reflections, and there's a mention of capitalizing on our opportunity for reflection right now that could be valuable in the future. I think if people who serve as co-chairs, if there were like a set of lenses or considerations that they were asked to reflect on before they departed the scene, that might also be really useful for their successor and for the CTC to historically locate the role of the COA in the context of educational reform in the most amazing state in the United States. So I don't know. I think that, the CTC and the COA play this really pivotal role. What are the forces? What are the budget constraints? What about COVID? Like when we're looking back at all this, what are some of the decisions that we've been faced with in certain historical time periods? I think that's part of the whole, providing the story of peer-driven accountability for education.
That's an excellent point.
Any other comments for section 201?
Also, committee members, I forgot to mention that as you go through this, you will notice that one of the revisions that we made throughout the document was in keeping with the current climate of being very cognizant and inclusive of gender identities. We took out he, she, mentions of he, she throughout the document, and changed it to they, them, and their. So you will have noticed that. You probably knew exactly why we did it, but I just wanted to call that out.
Thanks, Erin.
The one thing I will say, just to kind of follow up on what Katrina was saying, is I think it's a great idea to have some kind of like a work together, and Anna and I and Erin, and we can all kind of chime in and what would be necessary I will say that from my background of having basically been working with the CTC first as a standards reviewer, kind of moving all the way through BIR and lead, I mean, having that background really has helped so that when the institutions come before the committee, it gives me a good idea of what was involved and what the steps through, both as a reader and then from my role as chair, it really helps to understand that. So I think some of that experience might also be useful.
So moving on to chapter 2, item 202 is the term limits for chairs. Currently it's 2 years, 2 one-year terms. And we would like to know if this is something that the COA wishes to extend the term limits for its co-chairs, or is the current process sufficient?
I think we just want to keep like Bob and Anna like forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have
like negative term limits. Can we rewind the clock or something?
You're so sweet.
We do have a provision where we suspend the rules and vote for people anyway. So as long as we keep that provision in, then these are not hard and fast. I mean, these are just suggestions. But then if the body agrees to suspend that and elect someone for a longer term.
I think it works as written. I mean, I've seen it work.
Great.
Like twice.
Right.
And as you move forward, and I know I'm out in June, but just like teaching or anything else you do, since we only meet, every other month basically, I would say it was really nice, even though I felt kind of bad sometimes, like the co-chair hog, I felt like as time went on, I just felt better and better, like with anything else. And I really have appreciated being able to continue to learn and grow as a co-chair. And that only comes with time and experience. Maybe some people come more to it more naturally. But I just, going forward, if someone's doing a halfway decent job and you're not biting at the bit to get in there yourself, to just keep the process going.
Yeah, there's definitely a learning curve. One thought that I had was it might be beneficial if both chairs don't leave the same year, and I'm not advocating to stick around a year, but the only thought behind that is that if both leave on the same year, there's really nobody with experience to come in now to kind of help the process along. Right. So I think having someone who's sat in that and been in that position can kind of help and take more of a leadership role that first couple of months at least until the new chair gets acclimated and kind of understands the procedures and so forth. That's just a thought I've had for a while.
That definitely makes sense.
Makes sense.
I was thinking the same thing just when you started talking, that overlapping terms seem to make sense.
Yeah.
And I think that might be a good way to encourage new leadership too to come in if they're maybe less hesitant if they know there's half the team's experienced or half of the co-chair team is experienced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. And it's almost like the way a lot of associations work with president-elects and then president and then past president. So you've got distinguishing roles, but it gives you a better sense of when you're actually the president, what that's going to consist of. So.
Sure, absolutely.
So sometimes, how can I say this? There aren't a lot of people who want to step forward and take the chair position. And so I think what ends up happening is the individuals that are willing to do it, kind of are accepted. And perhaps limiting, if 2 people were willing to do it and nobody else wanted to step up and they both turned out at the same time, that putting a requirement in the procedures manual that they have to term out at different times could limit who might be able to step into those roles. As opposed to, I guess I'm just saying, like, as a staff member, I'm hearing you say that. And I'm recognizing that it would be a good thing to have in a perfect world, but I just want to make sure that you don't restrict your own abilities to appoint or elect co-chairs.
That's a very valid point. I definitely see that, Erin. I guess I was just thinking that if the opportunity, or if the situation did present itself, that might be some way, or maybe, and maybe it's not even the procedure, but maybe past chairs, I think most of the times they might actually have another year on their term before they expire, not as a chair, but just as a board member. So maybe they are there, and then maybe it's just a more recognizable, not by anybody on the higher ups, but just that all committee members can recognize a new chair's coming in, but the previous chair is still here. So like a past president, they're there for any guidance, any advice, anything that could possibly be helpful along the way. I mean, I know when my term is up, I'm going to be happy to help anybody who needs guidance. I think that's part of our process and our privilege and responsibility. So again, maybe nothing formal, but just maybe something we can recognize.
Sure, and we might maybe do a better job of, in advance of the elections, pointing out to everybody elections are coming up. And if you're thinking about doing this, now could be a great time because the current co-chair will still be around and you'll have a nice mentoring opportunity. So just, I guess, maybe having more conversation around the role, the responsibilities, and the opportunities prior to elections so that everybody can have a chance to kind of get their brains engaged in it and be thinking, okay, maybe this is the right time for me.
Cool. Okay. So I don't want to stop the conversation. It's a great conversation, but I do know it's 11:33. I know we have 11:30 time certain. Do we have the representatives for item 16 present?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll come back to this. Okay, thank you. So item 16 is the report of the accreditation team to University of California, Los Angeles. Consultants William Hatrick and Kristina Najarro will introduce this item. Joining them today is team lead Dr. Pia Wong, speaking of co-chair, and institutional representatives Dr. jodypriselac, Associate Dean of the School of Education and Information Studies, Dr. Anna-Marie Francois, Executive Director of Center X and UCLA School of Education and Information Studies, and Ann Isken from the Center of Center X and the UCLA School of Education and Information Studies. All right, thank you. Anyone need to recuse himself? All right, seeing none, Mr. Hatrick, will you please begin?
Good thing, and I'm actually going to hand it over to my wonderful colleague, Kristina Najarro, who helped me out on this visit.
Excellent. Great, Ms. Najarro.
Thank you. Good morning, committee members. The accreditation site visit to the University of California, Los Angeles took place January 31st to February 3rd. The site visit proceeded in accordance with all normal accreditation protocols and was sadly held virtually due to the ongoing pandemic. We all would have loved to have spent some time on their beautiful campus. The UCLA staff and faculty were well prepared to host the team virtually and ensured that each team member had the necessary technology to complete their work successfully. While the hard work and preparation of the whole UCLA team was evident, I would like to give a special thanks to Ann Isken and Sheila Lane, who were very responsive throughout the months leading up to and during the site visit, so that the team was able to access all of the information that it needed. I will now turn it over to a familiar face, team lead, Dr. Pia Wong, to discuss the standards, findings, and accreditation report.
Thank you, Kristina. And I just want to begin by saying hi to all my friends that I have served with before on the Committee on Accreditation, and also to colleagues that I wish I had served with, but didn't have the pleasure. I'd like to begin by recognizing just the amazing work of William Hatrick and Kristina Najarro, who kept our team especially well organized, really on task. And then I would also like to recognize work and the expertise and the standard of professionalism that each member of our team brought to the process. I think for all of us, doing this work online was not why we signed up to be part of the team, and it required a lot of stretching, but I think that our team was very flexible and still managed to create a sense of camaraderie and an enthusiasm for the work that we had to do in terms of reviewing all of the documentation and engaging in all the interviews with the folks at UCLA. Could not proceed into my report without really giving thanks to the leadership at UCLA and all of the different, 406 people that were part of interviews during the site visit. So I'd like to recognize Interim Wasserman Dean Tina Christie, especially Associate Dean jodypriselac, who I got to meet with many times, which was quite a joy. Center X Director Anne-Marie Francois, another joyful person to find in many meetings that I was a part of. The Luskin School of Public Affairs Dean Gary Segura, and then also the two faculty members who oversee their social work program, Jerry Lavinia and Hector Palencia. The Extension Dean Eric Bullard, and then really all of the amazing staff who support the faculty, support the students. It really was our pleasure to meet with them and just bring some of the documentation to life through learning more how they do their work, how they support each other, and how they keep the elements of their vision really vibrant throughout their programs. And so I know that you all have read the report, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time reviewing it. I do just want to say that I think what was impressive for our team was both the depth, so how deeply the core elements of the UCAP vision around social justice and ethic of caring and a commitment to communities, how deeply that runs through coursework and various elements of the clinical experience across the different credential programs that UCLA sponsors, and then how broad it is, and how that breadth really allows for different disciplines that come together under the unit of governance, UCAP, how well they collaborate and draw on each other's strengths to really provide top quality experiences for their candidates. One of the things that I kept trying to figure out how to work, it just wasn't something that was easy to do, given how we write the report in reference to the standards. So I'm going to take the opportunity now to sort of share this with you, because it couldn't make it into the report in a graceful way. But I think it really encapsulates what UCLA is doing with its educator preparation programs and how it is bringing to life its vision across all of its units. And that is in the efforts that it is directing with the Mann Community School. So this is one of two community schools that the campus, its educator preparation programs collaborate together on. It is in the long and sort of vibrant tradition of community schools. And I think, and when you think particularly about Common Standard 5, it's a place where I think the UCLA educator preparation programs really shines, but maybe not exactly in the way that Common Standard 5 sort of allows them to shine, because Common Standard 5 tends to be a little bit about data, and this is an emerging effort, and I think they will have really powerful data eventually. But at the Mann Community School, it's a school in South Central Los Angeles. It's one of two community schools, if I understand correctly, that UCLA collaborates. It's a place where it's just a kind of a cauldron of amazing education. It's a place where across the different educator preparation programs, UCLA has a very strong presence. It's becoming a school where many of their teacher preparation alumni are getting their initial jobs and then staying. As a result of working across the unit and really putting their vision into practice, this is a school that serves a primarily like a higher than average African-American population of students in poverty. And they're really helping the community figure out how to, I hate this word, but like turn the school around. So enrollment is increasing, programming is becoming more robust and responsive to what the school's families and students would like to see. And they've done a number of really interesting dashboards to sort of chart what's happening at the school. So they're looking, of course, at academic mastery, but they're also collecting data and sort of self-evaluating on other elements of student learning and growth. So are the students self-directed and passionate? Do they do they demonstrate global and cultural competence? Are they active and critical participants in the life of the school? And so I think that in addition to all the other things that you all read in the report, I think that this community school that pulls together the different expertise of the faculty, the staff, in response to needs from the community, really, I think, illustrates, what the university is doing in response to the standards that the commission has set. And then I think really thinking about ways to go beyond the standard and standards and sort of integrate new ways of expressing the standards. So William gave me directions on what to do. He said, tell a story or something that will, assume that everybody has read the report. You don't have to rehash it. And the report was pretty glowing. So, but I did really want to sort of emphasize this community school as an example of how this one campus pulling its different educator prep programs together and really trying to do something innovative, compelling, and I think responsive to the community through its educator prep programs. Other than that, I think you all know, we did lots of interviews. We had lots of meetings. There were 71 standards that the programs were supposed to meet, and we found that all of them were met, and delightfully so. So I think at this point, I will conclude my report, and I think, do I say the phrase to the institutional representatives, and we'll give you some time to respond to the report. This is not a time to argue the decision, though this is probably not a decision you're prepared to argue. And with that, I think I'll turn the Zoom mic over to whomever is going to speak from UCLA.
Well, before that, Pia, just thank you for that report. I mean, you said you have a phrase that you don't like and maybe overused, but I think you did a really great job of illuminating what they are doing to think outside of the box. And there's another overused phrase, but I think it really does apply here to have the opportunities and programs they are providing. So I think it's phenomenal. So thank you for the detailed report. So yes, this institutional representatives, who would like to comment first?
I'll start. I'm jodypriselac. I'm an associate dean in the School of Education and Information Studies and faculty in the teacher education program. I'm a mathematics educator. And I first want to thank the team, both the CTC team with William's lead, and then the accreditation team with Dr. Wong's lead. It was an amazing team. We didn't know what to expect virtually being visited and all that. And it was amazingly done. And I appreciate their professionalism, their thoughtful questions, their willingness to learn. And I have to say with Dr. Wong's story right now, the UCLA Community School is definitely a place that's near and dear to all of us. So that you picked up on that and that you spoke about it today is really important to us, because that's what teacher educator preparation is all about. It's serving our children in our city and across our state who have been traditionally underserved. So we are very proud of the work we do, and we're so glad that it came through in the visit. And our commitment to social justice and caring in the communities we serve. So I thank you. I thank you very much. I'll ask Dr. Francois if she wants to say a word or two.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anna Marie Francois, and I'm the Executive Director of Center X that houses two of our educator preparation programs. And I serve as the co-chair with Dr. Prislac of our accredited preparation advisory board, so to speak. And I would echo everything that Jody said about what Pia's termed the standard of professionalism on the team. When the team came to visit, I did share that I was skeptical about this virtual site visit. And to be honest with you, that skepticism kind of guided how I showed up every single day in preparation for the site visit. And this team proved me wrong, top to bottom, side to side. They were supportive, they were responsive, they came in prepared, they understood who we were, they asked us good questions. And in doing that, they came in as learners as well as critical thought partners. And really, as a commissioner, I think that's what the purpose of a site visit team is to learn about the organization and be critical thought partners. Because what we really want to do, both as a commission as well as individual educator preparation program, we want to transform public schools. And this is a partnership, and we do it differently depending upon the context in which we serve. And this process has reignited my faith, if I ever had faith, in that this could be done virtually, and that real collaboration between the CTC and the IH educated preparation programs could happen, and can happen in a very caring, deep, mutually beneficial, inclusive kind of way. And that's going to lead to transformation in public schools. And that's what we are most concerned with at UCLA. I know it's most of what we're concerned with on the commission. And I would just say that I would close by saying that it is truly our privilege and our honor to serve the students, the young people, the families of Los Angeles, as well as the communities, schools, and educators that serve them. And our whole goal is to make the life outcomes for all of those folks that I just mentioned, to use our privilege and our power to advance justice, equity, and humanity in K-12 schooling. And Pia, when I was listening to you talk, I have to say, when you're doing the work, it's hard to step away from it for a moment and see the fruits of your labor. And when you just shared this report, I thought to myself, we may not have it 100% right, but we are well on our way. So I want to thank you for your partnership, and I want to thank you for your acknowledgement. I went on longer than I probably should have, and I apologize for that, but I don't apologize for the words in the collective work. So Joanne, do you have any final words on behalf of UCLA?
I couldn't have said it better than my colleagues, but I'll say only two things. One, I firmly believe the process made us better. I just really want to reinforce the fact that Anna Marie said that we are busy doing the work, but we found that we are not as good at talking about our work specifically. And the process made us better at that, got us much better at that. So thank you for helping us grow as a program. And again, I just want to reinforce, thank you to William Hatrick and to Kristina. We were supported from the very beginning of the process, and I can't say enough about what a difference that made.
Thank you all for your heartfelt comments. It's sometimes when we're working in the weeds, we don't really see the fruits of our labor, and it's nice to hear that the fruits of your labor have been acknowledged and recognized. And from the COA perspective, it's also nice to hear that you found the process that you supported, because while we know it's an accreditation process and sometimes that can be overwhelming, and I'm sure you've all been through a number of these over the years from various sources, it's reaffirming to us to know that the fruits of the labor that the PSD does and the staff and all the members of the COA is paying off, because it's programs like yours that demonstrate what can be done in an education system. And it's kind of reaffirmed that, yep, we are all in the same boat, we're doing the same thing together, we're all in the same cause and big project. So thanks for sharing all that. I'll return you to the COA members. Member Czajkowski. Member Czajkowski.
Yeah, you know, UC Berkeley was here earlier today, and wow, UCLA, go California. You people are impressive and amazing. And I want to say that as an educator in, Southern California for the last 32 years, the level of rigor and expectations that's evident not only in your comments just now, but also in the report, is very encouraging to me, because I think that the future educators of our state's kids deserve the most highly functional thinking, challenging, willing to challenge and question educators out there. So that message comes through loud and clear. Thank you for that. And I have a question. I'm a fan of residency. Our district has a residency agreement with 7 different feeder institutions. I find that to be an awesome vehicle for identifying, recruiting, supporting high demand teachers, particularly of color, in hard to staff areas. And I noticed a couple references to the term resident in the report, but it sounds like that the way that word is used is different than in a pre-service capacity, because your residents in the second residency year, I'm thinking of what I saw at the top of page 16 of the report, these people are already, it's almost like they're doing their first year of induction, but it's called residency. So I was wondering if you could just explain what the difference there.
Yes, that can be a little bit confusing. So originally our teacher education program, it's a 2-year credential master's program. And since its conception almost 30 years ago, we were using the terms novice and resident to articulate the difference between their first year and their second year. And the resident, that term means you're a resident in school. You are a full-time employee in the school while you are earning your master's degree. And then fast forward to the residency movement across the country and in California, we found ourselves with a little bit of a problem, right? Because residencies, according to the teacher residency program, refers to the pre-service year where you're doing an apprenticeship under the guidance of an experienced teacher, which is different than the way we were using the word resident for the last 20, 25 years. And so at UCLA now, we have our residents who are master's students who have a credential and are working on their master's degree while they're full-time teachers of record. And then the residency, the way you're describing it now, is our actual teacher residency program, where it's an apprenticeship model and they are learning their craft alongside an accomplished mentor teacher as they earn their credential. We talk about it a little bit differently at UCLA to make that distinction, but we knew that we had to, in order for folks to understand the program, the CTC, to understand our program, we wanted to use the language of the CTC. So we understand the difference at UCLA, and now hopefully you understand the difference based on the report.
Do you actually, I should probably know, but do you actually have agreements with LEAs in the nouveau residency capacity as well?
Yeah, so we're in our 12th year actually offering a STEM residency program. The first 10 years was with the Los Angeles Unified School District, which we actually have an ongoing residency with the CTC grant with LAUSD. The prior residency was with the Teacher Quality Partnership. And we now have a residency with the Centinela Valley Union High School District. And we have MOUs with both of those districts that outline, our shared responsibilities, stipends, all of the, I don't want to say mandated, but important. How are we going to work together throughout the next 5 years or throughout the next 3 to 5 years? So,
thanks.
Thank you, Member Martinez.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Wong, and our review team for the thorough report. I'd like to ask our colleagues at UCLA, you talk a lot, and Dr. Wong mentioned it as well, about the Man Community School Partnership, and just about how that really supports your vision for transforming public education. And a question I have is, I think about our work across the state and our work across many avenues that we partner together in other pieces of the work. How is what you're learning there, how is it informing your teacher preparation programs across, beyond that? But also, are there opportunities for the rest of us who are leading teacher preparation programs or leadership preparation to learn from your work and really take advantage of that knowledge to transform, to continue that transformation across the state? Does that make sense? And I'll ask this for whoever wants to answer it from the UCLA team.
I'll start, but then I'll let Anna-Marie fill in, because we see it as a site of learning, that as a university, the partnership is important in 2 ways, right? To support the community as well as to learn from it. So we do study it, collect data, publish around it, and Anna-Marie can talk more about the recent works that that comes out. But I think that's an important question, right? It's like, how do we learn? That's our role, really, to share our learning, as well as to prepare educators to teach our children in that space. So I'll let Anna Marie talk specifically about the kinds of work that we're doing, the workshops, the people we bring to the campus. It's been a little different this year. Hopefully next year we'll be back to the site visits and the site learning, but Anna Marie can talk specifically about some work that's come out recently to share our knowing.
Thank you.
So I'll just share a couple of things. The first is, and it's a great question, Dr. Martinez, is that we go into this work really believing that schools are sites of teacher learning, and that if you want to retain high quality teaching in schools that have historically not been able to keep high quality teachers and are dealing with issues of inequity and trauma, then it has to be a serious engagement between the LEA and the university. And we have to be willing to learn from one another. To be honest with you, you can't do that as an educator preparation program if you are spread all over the city. There's a lot of need out there. And I think in the sense of urgency to meet such a broad need, that teacher education programs sometimes spread themselves too thinly. Well, when you do that, you can't create the capacity and the structure in order to do exactly what Jody's talking about, to really go through these cycles of improvement, essentially, to really meet the needs of those individual schools, to reflect on your own teacher education practice, and therefore those two things coming together to transform what's happening at school. UCLA used to go to many districts. We would place our student teachers, I'm just going to talk about teacher preparation right now, to many, many different schools in many, many different districts, because we wanted to serve everyone and there was such a great need. And what we decided is, this is the size of our program. This is the transformation we want to see happen. So we've got to be really selective and narrow our focus. And what happens then is that you are able to work with your LEA very closely around the moves that need to be made for that particular context to help, advance teacher quality. And what those teachers do when they leave that school, right, to get their first teaching job, we kind of guide them to places where we know that kind of teaching is going to be supported. It might not be pervasive at the school, but it is supported. And in that way, we are helping to build capacity beyond the schools that we partner with. And the other thing that Jody said that was really important is that the teachers at the schools then, along with the administrators and teacher educators, they go through these cycles of continuous improvement around their practice. And it's informed by both research, practice, as well as a commitment to equity and social justice. And we do that work together on a regular basis. There's no disconnect between what our teacher candidates are learning at UCLA and what they are learning in their clinical practice, because we're co-constructing that with our LEA and our community members. And I think that goes, I think I'm echoing a long way. I think that goes a long way in
well, seems that we've lost you.
Okay. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Learn not to panic. When things like this happen. I think that is really important. And I'm going to stop here because I am echoing, and I'm going to let Joanne and Jody finish.
Thank you. We do appreciate that. This conversation could probably continue. These are all wonderful discussion talks. I just wanted to point out that we do have two institutions in the waiting wings. We had one for 11:45 that I know they're on a time crunch. So I certainly don't want to cut anybody short. I think what you're sharing is extremely valuable. We could probably do this all day. But is there any last final comments anybody wish to mention? I thought, Member Kreischer, did you have your hand up?
I did, but I was just going to what everybody else was saying.
Okay.
Much I appreciate the candor in the report. It's really helpful to see everything going on. And it's just a great report and great institution. And yes, US love UCLA.
No fights there. So I'm sorry, I really don't want to cut you off, but this is an action item. The committee does need to take a vote on this. So if that's okay, I'd like to go ahead and ask for a motion. Member Czajkowski?
I move that we accept the recommendation for accreditation for UCLA.
So moved. Is there a second? Second by Member Balatayo. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Tourmaline Balatayo.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Katrine Czajkowski.
Aye twice.
Bob Frelly.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Lynn Larson.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Annamarle.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. And congrats on all the wonderful work you're doing there. And I'm sure we want to hear more of this down the road, and hopefully we'll have a chance to do further on discussion. But congratulations on efforts well acknowledged. So formally, thank you, Dr. Francois, Dr. Priselac, Ms. Isken, Pia, Dr. Wong, good to see you again, and then Ms. Najarro and Mr. Hatrick. Thank you all for your efforts. We appreciate it. Right. Have a great day. We do have a time certain, 11:17, or item 17 for 11:45, so we're a little behind. I know Gay we want to be sure we get her involved. Is Gay available still?
He's here.
Okay, great. So we're going to move right into it. I know we probably are looking for a break. We'll try to get one soon. Moving forward, though, item 17 is the report of the accreditation team to King-Chavez Academy of Excellence. Consultant Gay Roby will introduce the item. And joining her today is team lead Dr. Lloyd Dakwa and institutional representative Cindy Kelly, Chief Executive Officer. Does anyone need to recuse himself? All right, seeing none, Ms. Roby, will you please begin? Sorry we delayed you, but thank you for being patient.
Sure, I'm not seeing Lloyd yet. You just not on my screen.
Hang on one second. Yep, she's coming in. There she is. Thank you so much.
Great.
The virtual site visit for our King-Chavez neighborhood of schools, or schools of excellence, have been known by both, took place on Monday and Tuesday, February the 8th and the 9th. This site visit was originally scheduled for May, but was moved up when the director, the day-to-day program director, announced she was having her second child in March. So we met in February instead, and the baby girl was very kind in waiting till the end of our visit to be born. We thought we were touch and go there for a while, but everything went according to plan. We had no speed bumps. The site visit team was led by Lloyd Dakwa. There were 3 members on the team, and I will turn the microphone over to her for the actual report.
Good morning, COA members. My name is Lloyd Dakwa, and on behalf of the visiting team, which included Anna Marie Villalobos and Kimberly Campbell, I would like to extend our gratitude for the opportunity to serve on the King-Chavez Neighborhood School site visit. Together with Gay Roby, our consultant, who gave us the utmost professional guidance, we engaged in a conscientious examination of the site's documentation and multiple interviews of stakeholders in an attempt to arrive at a fair recommendation. Before I get to the report, I'd like to thank the King-Chavez Neighborhood Schools program leader, Emily Brimmer, and the CEO, Cindy Kelly, who is here with us today, for their warm hospitality. Despite the virtual nature of the visit, their cordial demeanor was palpable, and all technology and logistical needs were satisfied. Special kudos to Emily. She had great resilience prior to and during the visit, as she was in the advanced stages of her pregnancy during this endeavor. And she prayed and hoped the baby would wait to arrive until after the visit, but she was such a trooper all the way through. So I really appreciate that. The team found the visit productive and expeditious, which I attribute to the commitment and thorough preparations made by the institution. The accreditation website was well organized, and most items were easily identified and comprehensible. And if any items needed further clarification of any kind, Emily was informed by Gay or myself, and she promptly responded with additional materials to eliminate any confusion. Prior to the visit, the team invested in a number of online meetings and email communication to learn about the program. During that time, we documented the strengths and noted areas for evidence relative to program and common standards. And then once we got to the site virtually, we interviewed all of our stakeholders, as you have seen in the report. So interviews with the program leader, institutional leadership, candidates, and everyone else confirmed much of what we had gleaned from the program website and was heavily substantiated during these interactions. So as a result of a thorough examination of the evidence, the team found all standards met except Program Standard 4, Qualifications, Selection, and Training of Mentors, and Common Standard 3, Course of Study, Fieldwork, and Clinical Practice, which have been found to be met with concerns. The team therefore recommends accreditation with a 7th-year report, since the concerns only relate to a segment of each standard and a few adjustments can easily remedy these missing elements. With regard to Program Standard 4, Qualification, Selection, and Training of Mentors, the evidence showed that the institution provides an initial training for its mentors, but does not offer training beyond that time period. With regard to Common Standard 3, the team did not find evidence that mentors were recognized in a systematic manner. Despite these minor gaps, I would like to commend the institution on a few of their strengths. Number one, we found that the institution has a committed leadership. When we interviewed Cindy Kelly and Emily Bremer, we found that both of them were highly knowledgeable of the program and were very dedicated to serve and retain new teachers. In our interviews with mentors and candidates and other stakeholders, the program leader was heavily revered and received multiple accolades from almost everyone. So that was quite evident as we spoke with the institutional leadership. The second piece was their collaborative culture. Given the small size of the King-Chavez Neighborhood Schools Teacher Induction Program, the leadership team meets frequently to review their data and readily makes modifications to meet the needs of its candidates. Candidates spoke favorably about the collaborative culture among beginning and mentor teachers and the rapport that exists to support vertical alignment among schools. It is evident that the candidates have a solid foundation of support. Feedback surveys from all of the stakeholders indicate that the program seeks input from everyone that's involved and readily implement changes where necessary. For example, they reduced the number of mentor observations and replaced that time with an extra triad meeting to include additional time for goal setting with administrators. And the third one is this site leadership involvement. The administrators at the school sites were extremely knowledgeable about their teachers' ILPs to the point that they, when they visited the classroom and made observations, they knew what the teachers were working on and were very involved in ensuring that they had the necessary professional development to align with their ILPs. And they played a great part in induction in that they are the ones who select the mentors for the candidates. And one principal even joked that it was just a delight to see how many of the candidates mirrored the practices of their mentors. So overall, the team found a robust program that served its beginning teachers effectively and is impacting student learning through job-embedded goal setting and classroom observations. These are coupled with evidence-based curriculum resources, professional learning, qualified personnel, and a reflection to bolster teacher efficacy. We're pleased and satisfied with our recommendation for accreditation with a 7th-year report to tighten up the minor gaps. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lachman. Thank you, Ms. Roby. I understand there's some issues with my microphone. Is it better now? You know what it is? It's the computer fan trying to cool the computer off. And it's finally stopped, so I think it's what it is. See, we're working too hard. All right, so this is now an opportunity for the institutional representatives to briefly comment about the visit. We remind you this is not a time to dispute the team report, but rather provide any thoughts that you may have about the visit itself.
Hi, my name is Cindy Kelly, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the site visit accreditation team, Gay, Loy, Anna Marie, and Kimberly. They were very lovely and also very professional. This was our first site visit as an institution. And then obviously we had the pandemic, and so, it turned into a virtual site visit. And then as Gay and Loy also alluded to, our program director was on the verge of having a baby during it. So all things considered, I also believe that the site visit went as smooth as it could, and we really appreciate the support. We learned a lot from the site visit. It was definitely an opportunity for us to learn and to take feedback and suggestions to continue to grow the program and get better and better. We look forward to implementing more professional development for our mentors, as well as forming a tighter partnership with our institutions of higher learning. We already have quite a few MOUs in place with local universities for student teachers and intern hours. And so we just need to take that a step farther and create a more concrete partnership with them in terms of our new teachers that we get as well. And so we look forward to that. And then the other thing we'll implement newly is to recognize our mentors more strategically across the network, so they can be awarded for all of their time and energy. And then I just wanted to quickly note something that I just discovered in doing a report that I was doing for my board. All of our Teacher of the Year award winners last year were all induction teachers who had gotten their clear credential through our program. And so after I discovered that, I thought, well, that's something we should have brought up at the site visit. It's a thing we can applaud. So we were excited about that. And then again, Emily, the site director, our program director, is out today actually having her baby. So thank you for taking the time today and for allowing me to fill in as her for this very important meeting. We appreciate all of the support and the guidance, and we look forward to continuing to support our teachers with the help of the state of California.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly, and very well stated. Appreciate your comments and your perspectives. And that's wonderful news. So duly noted, not for the report, but for all of us here. So thank you. It's a great accomplishment. Any opportunity for comments or questions from any of the committee members? Member Czajkowski.
Well, yeah. Hi, I'm from San Diego too. So yay, King-Chavez. I know I'm sorry, all my colleagues. I know I sound like a broken record, but as I'm listening to you talking about partnerships with IHEs, it makes me think about teacher residency, and teacher residency being an opportunity to formalize a relationship with the institutions that are preparing people to become induction candidates, like in your school. So just as you look for ways to nurture those relationships, I mean, one of the updates Erin gave us at the beginning of the meeting is there should be some more money coming down the pike for teacher residency. We'll see, maybe that's continuing existing programs or potentially launching new ones. Maybe keep your ear to the ground about that, because I mean, money's always good stuff, especially when it helps us build capacity, and that's what these grants can do. So yeah, that just might be a suggestion moving forward. Good work.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other committee member? All right, seeing none, this is an action item. Is there a motion? Member Czajkowski.
I move that we accept the recommendation of accreditation for 7th year revisit for King-Chavez.
And just to clarify, revisit, but rather a report.
Report,
sure
sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, that is a recommendation from the team, correct?
I hope so.
Yeah, we're just checking with Dr. Dakwa.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, so moved. Is there a second? Second by Member Martinez. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Omalane Balatayo.
Aye.
Kathy Grisha.
Aye.
Katrine Czajkowski.
Aye.
Bob Frelly.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Lynn Larson.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Anna Moore.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. So thank you for your outstanding efforts so far. We look forward to reading the 7th year report. And again, thank you very much, Ms. Kelly. Thank you, Dr. Dakwa. Also, thank you, Ms. Roby, as always.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, thanks. Have a great day. We do have a 12 o'clock time certain. I just want a quick check. Are they behind the clock, or do we have 5 minutes for a quick stretch?
Second?
So we'll do
we have time for 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll do the item 18, and then we'll come back and finish off the day, and maybe come back and revisit the manual. Okay, so 5 minutes, folks. Thank you. Well, the next item is talking. So I think we're already here. We're on item 18. All parties present. Item 18 is report of actions taken to address stipulations from Milpitas Unified School District. Consultant Roxanne Perdue will introduce the item. Joining her today are institutional representatives Cheryl Jordan, Superintendent, Kim Nguyen and Dakshin Tosa, and Raquel Kusinoki, Director of Learning and Development. Does anyone need to recuse himself? All right, seeing none, Ms. Perdue, will you please begin?
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee members. Today we're going to discuss the report of actions by this Unified School District, also known as MUSD for this presentation, to address their stipulations. For the February 2020 accreditation site visit, the committee assigned the status of accreditation with major stipulations to MUSD and its new teacher induction program, requiring 4 quarterly reports, with this being the final report. As a reminder, these reports are reviewed by staff rather than a team, and recommendations are made by staff based on the evidence and information provided. This 2021 report provides information and evidence on the actions taken by MUSD to address the following areas of concern. Common Standard 1, institutional and infrastructure to support educator preparation. Common Standard 2, candidate recruitment and support. Common Standard 3, course of study, fieldwork, and clinical practice. Common Standard 4, continuous improvement. Common Standard 5, program impact. And then Program Standard 5, determining candidate competence for the clear credential. Based on these areas of concern and the standards, there were a total of 5 stipulations to be addressed by MUSD within 1 year. We will review one stipulation at a time, present a summary of evidence and information associated with each stipulation. So let's start with stipulation number 1. It required the institution to demonstrate that it actively involves faculty, instructional personnel, and relevant stakeholders in the organization, coordination, and decision-making for the teacher induction program. The evidence provided in the report identifies 3 major actions taken by MUSD to address this stipulation. First, advisory board meetings now take place 3 times a year with a wide range of new stakeholders and IHE representatives. The feedback from these meetings were used for decision-making for the teacher induction program based on data and feedback from mid-year surveys by administrators, candidates, and mentors. Second, MUSD now conducts individual learning plan focus group meetings 2 times a year to provide opportunities for decision-making and ideas on how to support candidates, as well as improve the ILP process and the ILP document based on feedback from candidates and mentors. The third action demonstrates involvement in decision-making by stakeholders, including administrators. The program staff now attend principal and assistant principal meetings to share updates about the program, and then feedback from these meetings helps to inform the program on what administrators understood about the program and support still needed. I actually found this to be an area where a lot of induction programs, that communication with administrators could greatly improve and help with the induction program overall. So I particularly like to see that update that they did. Stipulation number 2 requires that the education unit demonstrate that it monitors and communicates defensible credential recommendation process to ensure that all requirements have been met by the candidate, including the commission adopted expectation of documenting evidence of growth toward mastery of the California standards for the teaching profession, also known as the CSTPs. A total of 7 actions were taken by the program to address this stipulation. In summary, at the time of the site visit, the program did not have evidence to demonstrate candidate competencies and growth toward the mastery of the CSTPs, and also needed a clear way to monitor and communicate the credential recommendation process. Since the site visit, the program immediately started work to revamp the exit interview process and implement a new exit interview rubric. And actually, for MUSD, they did this throughout all of their stipulations. They took immediate action, and not just in planning, but whatever they planned, they immediately implemented and continued to progress and grow with that. So that was particularly good. The new process and expectations were presented and explained to expected program completers beginning in the spring of 2020. An exit interview panel was created to collaborate on the rubric and conduct the individual interviews with the candidates. This new process was added to their handbook and presented to candidates at orientation. Additionally, candidates also began to document their growth toward mastery of the CSTPs by selecting 2 additional CSTPs a semester to discuss with their mentors to deepen their understanding, along with a video recording that demonstrates that CSTP. At the end of the year, candidates have an opportunity to reflect across all CSTPs. Finally, the induction team began to collaborate with human resources to ensure that the recommendation process was in sync. In addition, the 2 teams created a clear recommendation checklist that also incorporated the new executive order requirements due to COVID. So moving on to stipulation number 3, which required the program to provide evidence that progress in meeting competency and performance expectation is consistently used to guide advisement and support candidate efforts, along with a clearly defined process to identify and support those candidates who need additional assistance to meet the competencies. The program took 3 major actions to address this stipulation. The revision of the ILP rubric came with 2 workshops, one in fall and one in spring. There's an exit interview rubric as well that covers the exit interview process and expectations presented to mentors and expected program completers and early completion option candidates. As for the final item in the stipulation, the program took action to create an induction support and intervention team based on recommendation by their advisory board. This team was created to identify those candidates in need of additional support. The induction support and intervention team that they created was based on a recommendation from the advisory board. So that once again shows through all the stipulations when they have recommendations for them not only exploring ways to get more feedback, but actually taking action on that feedback as a program, which is something that was commented on their program in the past. Stipulation number 4 required the program to provide evidence of implementation of a comprehensive continuous improvement process in with both the unit and program regularly assess their effectiveness and make appropriate modifications based on the findings, which is what I was just talking about and what we're seeing on all the 3 prior stipulations. So the evidence of this stipulation is actually addressed in the prior 3 stipulations. And there are additional evidence of surveys, team and and surveys and teams that were created, and feedback opportunities and advisory board meetings that led to very specific modifications and program improvements. And we've been going over the various program improvements they've been making based on those meetings and new feedback groups. Stipulation number 5 in our final stipulation required the program to provide evidence documenting the process through which it ensures all candidates know and demonstrate knowledge and skills required by the standards prior to recommendation for a credential, and that the unit and program demonstrate that they have a positive impact on teaching and learning in California, which goes along with Common Standard 5. As noted in the prior stipulation, evidence that this stipulation was addressed may be found in the evidence provided in stipulations 1 through 3, including but not limited to the new ILP rubric, the exit interview process, the mid-year surveys by mentors, candidates, and administrators. Not previously noted would be that there's also now a program completer survey sent to all staff members to demonstrate how many of the candidates who complete the program tend to take on leadership roles as one method of demonstrating a positive impact of the program. I think a prior one, they were talking about how their candidates had been found to be teachers of the year. And so they're discovering that through this process, their induction candidates are starting to take on leadership roles already at the end of their induction program. The various surveys are examined for the impact on the program in the practice of the teachers and mentors. Direct quotes from these surveys are provided as examples at the end of this report. I gave you 2 samples, but I looked at many samples. I just chose 2 that were representatives. In reviewing the various comments, the state consultant noted that a common theme of the mentors indicated that it helped them to reflect on their own practice and improve their own teaching. Because reflection became such a big theme for the induction program, self-reflection, daily reflection. Candidates also had the common theme of reflection being absolutely necessary in teaching, so the induction program encouraged daily reflection on teaching practice. All of the comments I saw said that's one of the major items they would take away from their induction program was self-reflection. Finally, based on the evidence and information provided, staff recommends that the COA remove the 5 major stipulations for MUSD and change its accreditation status from accreditation with major stipulations to accreditation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perdue. We now invite institutional representatives to briefly comment on the report. Any comments you wish to make? By the way, is the microphone better? Are you still hearing echo at this point from me? To anybody? No. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. Yes. Would anybody like to comment on the report? Thank you. The visit. So
I'm
Ms.
sorry,
Nguyen, Ms.
I'm hearing the static. I'd like
Go
to,
ahead.
yeah, I'd
Go
like
ahead,
to,
please.
As Roxanne pointed out in the lengthy, because we had 5 stipulations, I do want to share that since our site visit in February 2019, our team has worked diligently to address each stipulation. And the process of revisiting and revamping the pathways and structures that we created within our program enabled us to implement action plans that not just address the stipulation as a checkoff, but to truly transform a program to make it authentic and to make the learning meaningful for our participating teachers. And obviously 13 months with 5 stipulations, it was really a great learning experience, and something that Roxanne highlighted was the word reflection, that there is no improvement without reflection. And 13 months, Kim and I, along with the stakeholders and faculty members, engaged in a lot of reflecting processes for each area that we knew that we needed to improve upon. And I'll tell you, with the pandemic hitting us, it certainly made it even more challenging. But even with the pandemic, it tested our program's sustainability, and we still continued to address each stipulation and implement and embed with fidelity our ability to involve our faculty and our staff, our stakeholders, our ability to utilize our calibrated rubric during exit interviews. Every single thing still took place, only virtually, but we still found a way, and it truly pushed us to think outside of our own comfort zone and think outside of the box and implement things that we were supposed to implement, not for the sake of meeting just the stipulation, but to truly create a program that is going to impact not just our learners, adult learners, but the students in the classroom, because that's what it's all about. So the 13 months of working to improve our practice or our program has enabled us to become more intentional in our work and has allowed us to see a clear purpose for our role and our responsibility within the program, to our staff and also to our teachers. So I want to let you know that obviously we didn't do this alone. I want to thank you, Roxanne, for the support and the guidance she provided. I also want to recognize my superintendent, Cheryl Jordan, Assistant Superintendent Jonathan Brunson, and Assistant Superintendent Norma Rodriguez for their commitment and their support. And more importantly, well, actually before the more importantly piece is the faculty, the MUSD staff, teachers, and Kim Nguyen, who has been with me through the whole journey. It has truly been a great learning experience for us, one that we will remember because it has really built our individual capacity and the capacity of a team. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Kusunoki. Ms. Nguyen, any comments you wish to make?
I just want to agree with Raquel. This journey that we took since the site visit has been really an eye-opener in what the program can be, and it was really fun in the process of just kind of looking at the program standards and looking at the common standards and truly understanding what it is and building that foundation for our program. And even our mentors and our teachers have given feedback just throughout the year of like, wow, like I really like these improvements or these new addition things that we're adding. They really feel that it's really focused on them and that it's not just a program that they have to go through.
Great, thank you for your comments, appreciate that. Any questions or comments from committee members? Member Taylor.
Congratulations. The report that you're receiving is an endorsement of the work that you've done to address the deficiencies. Under the pandemic, induction programs are seeing newly qualified teachers with deficiencies from their credential programs. I'm wondering if you're seeing some of those, and if so, how are you going about meeting those deficiencies in terms of helping candidates in the induction program to backfill requirements, perhaps of the TPA or the CSET that they didn't manage to accomplish in their initial teacher preparation program?
In the beginning of the start of the school year, from our HR, we kind of would get a list from candidates who still have those additional requirements, such as the RECA and TPAs, and then we would offer that support. It was encouraged from CTC to kind of let them settle the first semester and start giving them the additional support in the spring. So we continue to provide them support, just-in-time support along the way when they're ready to. And I think we have about 5 candidates who are planning to do their RECA this spring, and one is doing their TPA this semester. And so we've been in constant contact with their mentors and supporting them and providing them information from CTC where they can get additional support or webinars that they can support their candidate as well. And as well as going to collaborations with other induction programs and getting support in how, as a program across the Bay Area, how are we supporting teachers and mentors who have these additional requirements. And so we've just kind of been collaborating these ideas together.
Okay, thank you both. Any other committee member have any comment or question? All right, seeing none. This is an action item. Is there a motion? Member Balatayo.
I recommend that we remove the stipulations for MUSD and change its accreditation status from accreditation with major stipulations to accreditation.
Thank you. So moved. Is there a second? Second by Member Larson. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Omeline Balatayo.
Aye.
Kathy Gracia.
Aye.
Katrine Czajkowski.
Aye.
Bob Frelly.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Lynn Larson.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Anna Moore.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison. Gerard.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations on the efforts that you've made.
Thank you
This
so
is a
much.
huge step.
If
Absolutely
I may
bravo.
have my superintendent here. If I can just allow her to share.
Absolutely. Dr. Jordan.
Thank you so much. And I also have our Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Development, Norma Rodriguez, here with us. So, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes, this is 13 months of investment both by your staff as well as ours. And we see that when we collaborate together, great things happen. And it truly is an opportunity for growth, which we greatly appreciate, and welcome you to come back anytime to see how we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments. It definitely is a collaborative effort, and congratulations on the well-earned work that you've accomplished the past 13 months. Yeah.
Thank you all for your support. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Norma.
Thank you, Kim.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jordan, Mr. Nguyen, Ms. Kusunoki, thank you, and Ms. Purdue. Thank you all. Have a great day.
You too.
Well, now, thank you. We have time to go back to item 15, which is the discussion on the draft revisions of the COA procedure manual, and that actually will be the final item that we're going to be addressing today, and then we'll move on to public comment. So, Erin?
Yes, thank you. I'm actually going to turn it back over to Michelle, who had the floor.
Oh, that's right.
When we left last. That's okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Because we're short on time here, we're going to kind of just focus on the areas where we need your input and your guidance. So we're going to skip to the areas and the sections that have for committee discussion next to them, starting with Chapter 2, Section 203, which is the officer vacancy. This section is for committee chairs if they're not able to attend a meeting, that the co-chair be able to appoint a member of the committee to serve as a temporary co-chair. So this is not reflected in the procedures manual. Is this something, language that you'd like to be added to the procedures manual?
Well, it ties in nicely with what we were talking about before, where maybe somebody could get experience as being a co-chair alongside someone who knows what they're doing. I never even thought of that, but that's an excellent suggestion and a great solution to what we were talking about earlier.
Right.
And there have been situations where either Anna or I couldn't make it, and we've had somebody else sit in our absence. So, is it a suggestion to have something more formalized process, or that we just identify somebody at the moment of need?
Having a more formalized process. I'm not sure if you want the co-chair to appoint a member or have the committee appoint a member. So that would be up to you.
So in advance or at the time of the meeting, the co-chair that is there could lead that, so it could be it could happen at a point in time.
I think
Great.
having
So a pre-identified person, yep. Go ahead,
What's that?
Sorry, Bob. I think it's, just having a simple statement that at the time of need, the co-chair can call upon another member of the committee and to sit beside and, as you know, share the role for that meeting. Just, I wouldn't make it too specific, just kind of that the co-chair can do that.
Okay. So at the meeting or before the meeting, so the person has a chance to.
Oh, before, if possible.
Sure. Okay. Got it.
Sure.
Okay.
It's like, just find your substitute from among, you know, the COA, maybe. I mean, I remember when Cheryl took sat in your chair, one of your chairs for a meeting, Cheryl Forbes. And it sounded like she'd been sort of oriented because she kind of knew what was up. I mean, not like she couldn't just fly it, you know, in real time, but I think that giving someone a heads up and then giving them a chance to prepare, I think, as Gerry suggested, if there's someone who might be interested one day in doing this is a chance to help them kind of see how it feels.
Absolutely.
Great. And I had a suggestion with the earlier item, and we had to leave before I had an opportunity to share, but I'm just, with the conversation that we had about the overlapping, the chairs not leaving at the same time. Is it possible just to kind of reflect the conversation that we had, that it's recommended that the co-chair terms, you know, so that going forward, other committees know that it's our hope that, you know, we're going to have that opportunity, but if it's not possible, then that's fine. So we're not locking ourselves in, but we're making the recommendation that the terms, in terms of when they end, you know, are staggered.
Okay.
A good recommendation.
I had kind of brought that up, and then I remember, Erin, you had made one comment about, towards the tail end of the conversation, about feeling boxed in or something, and I wasn't quite sure.
Well, I think that's what Committee Member Larson is getting at, is that it be added as a recommendation or an if possible or whenever possible. So I think we can definitely find some permissive language to add that also expresses the desire of the committee.
Great, that sounds good. Do we need to take a formal vote on that at all?
No, so what we'll do is take your feedback today and make final adjustments and modifications to the procedures manual, and then the manual will come back to you for a final vote. So we're taking feedback right now. So I guess, yeah, if there's anybody on the committee who does not want something like that added in, then, you know, we would want to know, but.
So by general consensus, it could be some wording put in there to come back to the committee to reflect and vote on. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Sounds good.
Great. So moving on to chapter 3, the next discussion is on section 302, initial approval of program. This was suggested that the committee may want to review this section due to the changes of the initial program review and questions about the process. Much of this information is already included in the accreditation handbook. So I know this has come up a few times before in discussion.
This was around, there have been times when some committee members have been concerned about making decisions about approving a program without getting more documentation. And one of our solutions recently has been consultant Miranda Gutierrez has now aligned the IPR process much more with the program review process. So we're asking for specific kinds of evidence. We're asking for specific kinds of evidence, and they are pieces of evidence that exist within the programs, like handbooks, faculty vitae, course sequences, things like that. So knowing the evidence that's included in that process, are you comfortable with the process that you have right now for approving new programs? Or, you know, do you want something else? Do you want something more? Do you want to be more involved in the review of all of that evidence? Or are you comfortable with the process as it exists at the moment?
You know, Erin, it seems to me like, just looking at the language in 302 there, that it places it redirects you to the accreditation framework, which seems like the place where those fine lines auto appear, that there's no need to be redundant, or I mean, I can see how there could be at risk of, just being overly repetitive in this wording. So from my vantage point, I think as long as it's really clear in the accreditation framework that those alignments have been achieved, as you've just described, it's up to us to read it and know what that says.
Yeah, Jamelin?
Yeah, I agree. I feel comfortable making decisions based on what we have currently. And I just want a small mention here that accreditation needs to be spelled properly in 304. English teacher.
No, I appreciate that. And the system's not calling it out. Isn't that interesting? Okay. Got it.
We still need human beings. Yay!
We do. We do.
Right. Believe to the contrary.
So the next section is 303, continuing accreditation decisions. This is just asking if we want to set a time frame to review the accreditation handbook. So there was a question about, are there a certain number of years before we have to review, or you should review the handbook? Currently, it doesn't indicate that in the procedures manual. Or
is there anything? Quick question: is there anything along the lines with CTC in general that has a review process? Is it every 5 years, every 10 years, that maybe we can piggyback with, or maybe doing alternating with, something like that?
Yeah, the commission has at times been better about being on a schedule, but the intent is that at least every 10 years a set of standards will be reviewed. And certainly, we would want to review the procedures manual anytime something is changed in the framework or the handbook or some process like that. So this is more of a, do we just want to open it up every 5 years, every 10 years, and make sure that it's still applicable?
The first thing that came to my mind was 5 years, because there's legislation, things change, and like you said, it's just an opening it up, reviewing it. Whoever's in charge of that, and PSD has maybe got little Post-it notes in their copy so that when it comes time, we can say we need to add in the outcomes of this, something that happened on the CDE side. Yeah, I'm just going to put that on the table. 5 years, every 5 years.
Well, and that interval also lends itself to like members of the COA who might not even realize, as much as we try to do research and know what all these different documents are, to understand, for example, there's these like 3 different things that need to fit together, that takes a little experience. So to have it on the table kind of says, oh, okay, here's this document, it's subordinate to this other one, and they all relate this way. It's necessary for us to know where the guidance comes from. So that's another reason to put it out there periodically.
Yeah, that's a good point. Member Larson, you have some comments as well?
No, I was just saying 5 years.
Good thing it wasn't 6. You have to use 2 hands.
Okay. Moving on, we're going to skip to chapter 11 unless there's any other section.
Error actually in section 306. The title of it, commission, is.
Oh yeah, commission's got 2 S's in it. 306.
Yes. Thank you.
Wow.
Aha, Jomeline and Lynn. You guys started it.
Right. Thank you.
Are there any other sections between chapter 4 and chapter 10 that you have any comments or questions about?
Just a question about the word agendized.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not familiar with that word. It could be a legitimate word. I'm just not familiar with it.
It's legitimate. Really, basically means just putting it on, making sure it goes on the agenda.
Yeah, figured that. I've never seen it used in a context, but it makes sense.
It's like the verb to Google, right?
Section 702, in the changes, it's there's a spelling mistake. So if the meeting is in person, sit away from the meeting table, and if electronic, turn off their camera, not turn of their camera.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
I know, just to sometimes when there's errors like the small spelling errors, Cheryl does ask that we just email them rather than go through the small.
Yeah.
So just an FYI, if there's no collection there.
Great, thank you.
And I have to scoot, but before I go, I did tell some of you I would share my new family member before I go. So I'm going to show you before I go.
Oh my
Oh,
so cute.
Here she is.
Cutie. What's his name? Anna?
Zori, like flip flop. The Zori.
That's cute.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't stay. I have another school meeting on Zoom. So take care. We'll see you all in May.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. Take care.
So, anything else on the
Any of the summary
manual,
of changes?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Anything we want to look at again?
Okay.
There's chapter 11, external relationships. So this is talking about relations and communications with the media. This came up in the last discussion at the last meeting. We want to talk about, I think it's the second paragraph in section 1101, chapter 11. Is there any discussion, questions, concerns?
What was the question that came up? I can't remember.
The question, somebody was contacted by, I believe by the media, one of the committee members was contacted by the media, and they came back to Cheryl and I believe Michelle and said, I've been contacted, I want to talk to this reporter, but do I present myself as a member of the committee or do I present myself in my professional role? And the guidance was, unless you have spoken with the co-chairs and the administrator of accreditation, which is Cheryl, in advance, and some decisions have been made, that you should always just represent yourself in your professional role. So we just wanted to know, is that clear in this section? Should we make that more clear in this section? Or, is that something that you would like greater flexibility on, that maybe we need to have that discussion?
As I read it, I'm looking at said, when speaking with the media, committee member must be careful to distinguish between. And if I'm reading that correctly, that doesn't really state that it should be speaking in professional of it. Still seems to leave it up to the discretion of the committee members. And if that's the intent, what do you all think?
We could take out the be careful part.
Perhaps I would say the committee member must distinguish between.
Is there any way to, I don't know the answer to my question, actually, for the first time, that wording about receiving approval from the administrator, it makes me feel a little like Big Brother, but I understand it. I mean, I know why. I'm just wondering if there's a way to word that in some way that is like consult with, consult with the administrator instead of, kind of, I don't know, there's just something a little bit censorship implying or connoting about that.
Okay.
Although I totally understand the intent and respect that.
Yeah, I think we can find other words so that feels a little less abrupt.
Consult, confer, something like that's a good idea.
Okay.
I think we've all learned that you don't like confer with people and then just defy their suggestions. That would be pretty dumb.
Right. All right.
Okay, moving on. 1102 is generation of positive publicity through dissemination practices. Are these activities primarily undertaken by commission staff? Could or should COA subcommittees be involved within the limits of the previous section?
Well, I would certainly not want the PSD staff be overwhelmed, yet I do believe that they are in the best position to adequately represent this COA, especially when if there might be issues of legality, if something might be said out of turn, that could be taken out of context, and I think that the PSD staff are the best equipped to handle that.
Well, then also related to that too, I don't know if it needs to be here, but I would kind of like to know how the work of the COA is being promulgated or advertised or published when that happens, because obviously there's a reason why staff would do that or why administrators would do that. But then I'd like to be infoed so that I know what the party line is in my conversations with stakeholders. I'm not going to make the assumption that I somehow have this ability to understand what everybody takes from meetings and how that's read in the current political and contextualized environment. So maybe just so that we know, so we're appraised, or that members are appraised of such efforts or something like that. I don't know.
I do know there have been times in the past where Gerry and Cheryl and Ann and I have gotten together, I think Ann might be part of the conversation, just to talk about certain things that might be disseminated to the public. But I think on just the general aspect of things, as far as what you're recommending, Katrine, I think it's a good idea, as long as it's not too much additional work for the staff that's already overworked. But just something would be nice, even like a bullet point summary or something. And that could be perhaps even be done with.
Sorry, Bob.
No, I was just going to say, even like something that could be, you can have input from the chairs, co-chairs, or from other committee members as something like a summary is presented. We know there's a summary that's presented at the end of every year that goes to the CTC, and that's a very in-depth, extremely detailed report. And I think, Katrine, what you're recommending is just something that might be more general. What do you think?
Maybe even just at the start of the meetings, like when we have the staff updates, maybe a little subcategory in there could be, communication regarding COA to any kind of high stakes audience or something like that. Like maybe that could just be a consideration as you're going through your checklist of staff updates.
Okay.
Informal, general, just so we're in kind of in the loop.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the last item for discussion is Chapter 1201, Recusal for Conflict of Interest. And this section is regarding turning one's camera off during recusal during an electronic meeting. But it talks about recusing yourself and then coming back for comments about a particular item. Do we want to allow comment after you've recused yourself from the item when the item is done? when a decision or action is made after the item.
Oh, after the vote's been taken?
Or is it?
Or if they want to make a public comment.
Okay.
So let's say the item comes up, you ask for recusals, a member recuses himself, they turn off their camera, or if we're in person, they sit, away from the table. And then when public comment is requested, we have had at least one occasion in the past, and it's been a while, where the committee member then wanted to come and make a comment as the public, but it wasn't clear to the other committee members while that was happening if they were supposed to be considering this comment as coming from a co-committee member or as a public member. So there's a couple of ways to kind of come at that. Either, if somebody's recused, then they also are not making a comment, or the way the language was proposed here is if they're going to come to make a comment during an item, then just to maybe have the co-chairs remind, the individuals there, we're going to hear public comment from this person. As a reminder, this committee members recuse themselves, this represents public comment, or something like that, just so that people don't end up feeling uncomfortable and not knowing what box they need to put the feedback in when they're hearing it.
I think the distinction is excellent. Yeah, I think it's an excellent distinction. And it just frees everybody up from a moment of not sure what's going on, and just establishes clear guidelines and procedures, and also allows the public to recognize that we are definitely establishing a distinction between committee member and public. For committee members who want to make a comment, it's not trying to reinforce and trying to influence committee members' positions or discussions based upon them being a colleague on the committee. But they're stepping aside from that for the moment.
Am I just overthinking this or not? But it seems to me like if you recuse yourself, you don't have input about the topic, and our presence at these meetings is as a member of the COA. Maybe I'm sounding hardline here. I don't know. I'm not sure why you would need to want to make a comment as a public. I mean, we sit in these roles. How can we not be attempting to influence people? I don't know. I think I'm just.
Well, we're talking about after the decision has been made. I could envision myself maybe recusing from an issue and people wondering why I'd taken myself out of that discussion if it wasn't obvious. And I could see an occasion when I might want to come into public comment and explain why I had recused myself from that. For example, that's not the only one, but there could be others.
Katrine, are you saying, Katrine, are you saying you can't really double dip? You can't be both a member of the committee and a member of the public?
I just think recusal means you have a potential conflict of interest. So you need to button your beak and get out of the picture on that issue because you're a public servant. That's what I think.
Until the decision has been made, I agree.
I think the
language you're saying once it is fine. Sorry. Go ahead, Marty. Go ahead.
I think the language is written in the new language is fine, and it kind of covers that as long as the chair recognizes that it's a public comment time, and we stick to that, and not from a COA point of view, because I think there might be occasions where it would be appropriate, and we have all sworn or agreed. We've made a commitment to follow to be represent the COA in a certain way, but then we're also representing our institutions occasionally as a member of the public, maybe. But I think I would recommend that we stick with the language. I think it's clear and covers what we need.
Can you believe I was just advocating for something that would keep me quiet? Yeah.
Do we get to recuse you?
No, I think it's like a reflexive verb, Gerry.
Oh, no, so.
Okay, I think those were the only sections up for discussion that we needed input on. Any other questions, comments?
If afterwards, I know we're all exhausted now, but if afterwards we go through this and come up with some see some other things. Who should we email with any suggestions?
Cheryl, you can email me. You can email accreditation mailbox.
I would say,
Erin.
yeah, go ahead and email Cheryl. She's, we're working on this together, but I think at this point she would prefer it if your comments went straight to her. At least then we all know where they're going and we don't lose any important feedback from you.
Cool.
So we'll
Thank
take
you,
your
Erin and Michelle.
we'll take your feedback and we'll bring it back for your approval at the next meeting.
Thank you all for your work on this.
Thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Not easy stuff when you got everything else going on. So I appreciate all the extra time and effort you put in to make this happen. A long time coming. This is great. Thank you. We are reached the time of public comment. Is there any member of the public still with us that have anything they wish to say? And if you do, just raise your hand. And although we can't really see in the chat feature.
No, I'm looking at the list of public attendees, and there are a couple of folks in there who are not commission consultants. So yeah, if any of those people raises their hand, and I'm not seeing any.
Okay. All right, seeing none, then we move on to adjournment. And before we adjourn, do we still do a decompress, or are we just going to adjourn and then end the formal meeting at that point?
I think we have to adjourn and end the formal
First,
meeting.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. So having no further business, I adjourn the March 2021 meeting of the Committee on Accreditation. The next meeting in the committee will be on May 6th to 7th in 2021. Thank you all. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Diana?